Second down and 5. Alabama can get a first down at the 6-yard line. And it's Jalen Milroe. Pump fakes. Jalen Milroe. Touchdown, Alabama. Again. 4 for number 4.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Fourth down, Gabriel on the run, throwing, Stoops, juggled it, caught it, but he's short. Oklahoma State's going to take over on downs, and a minute away from winning the final bedlam.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
8:40 to go. Second quarter, an 11-point lead, and that might grow. Jeremiah Trotter, touchdown Clemson.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
For Kansas with the ball up by 3, and Jason Bean wants to throw. Deep shot. Arnold! He is gone! Oh my goodness.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Brown the slot at the bottom with Stephon Johnson. Quarterback keeper up the middle.
Run.
For 2.
There it is.
Donovan Smith. Houston celebrates.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Will Howard backs up into the shotgun. Empty backfield. Howard looking. Howard scrambles. Howard lets it go. Incomplete. And Texas survives.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Alongside Garrett Ross on your Friday, a gloomy one here in the Central Texas area. I hope the weather is prettier where you are watching the show. It is. I'm glad that it's colder, Garrett.
I am too.
But we could do with it can be cool and the sun can be out. I know that kind of weather exists. I've experienced it before. It just seems that we're not getting that here.
No, I'll take this over yesterday, though, because I had to go to Conley and take the food over there and talk with the coaches and everything, and it was so bad. I was talking to my wife. I said that was the worst rain I had driven in my life. There's only one time I can think of that compared, and when I got the food, I stepped in a puddle of water, and my feet, and I was drenched the entire day, and it was cold, so I'll take this over that, but I still would like the sun out.
Yeah, it's like to give us some sun. I feel as Texans, we bargained too much.
Yes.
For the summer was so freaking bad.
Miserable.
It was so miserable this year. So hot where, my wife and I like to go to the pool. We have a community pool we go to. We love to do that. And when you have to wake up and go I think we got to go at 9:30 a.m. because by noon
it's a sauna.
The water just doesn't feel refreshing. It's tepid. It's like getting in a bath second.
You're just boiling.
You're I don't know, you were a little kid, when you were little, and they run the water, or you had your friend over, and the 2 little 4-year-olds they get in the bath together, but you get in the bath after, and you're I don't
grimy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just it wasn't great. So this is what we get. This is what we get here. And it's very interesting to me that those are the deals we make, but. As for deals, I think West Virginia was trying to make one with anybody they could, or Virginia last night was trying to make one with anyone they could to upset Louisville, but their defense could not hold 2 big plays in the last, 7 minutes of that game, where Virginia, for the first part of it, was really taking it to Louisville, who's on, they're about to do, they're on the precipice of doing something amazing in the first year under Jeff Brom, and here they were last night about to do it, and then big play, and Virginia loses it. I really do hope that Tony Elliott is given time to figure out who he is as a head coach there, because you can see some good things. Last year, I mean, you have to give Virginia a total, like, that was especially the way that the year ended and all of that. But you have to, but like they've shown some signs of life here lately, beating North Carolina, and growth would be the better term, but growth, like they've shown that. And so I kind of hope they do, because I think he's going to be a really excellent head coach. And he's a great, like, do yourself a favor and like read about Tony Elliott and like where he came from and what he's been through in his life to get where he is. It's a great story. So I'm hoping that for his sake, for Virginia, that they like giving them the time to figure that out, because I think he can, and I'll just tell you, Clemson hasn't been the same since he's been gone.
No, not at all.
So, and part of that was probably getting the kind of the big playmakers that they were before. So Virginia is not a classic football power, but I think that the way that the college football is moving, things can open up, and Louisville is the good example of that. They're a very good athletic department. Like outside of when they get, rocked with several controversies at once, the Patino thing that all happened, and then the Papa John's thing that kind of overlapped it, even though they don't really have anything to do with it other than taking his money. But like all that kind of overlapped at once for Louisville that they had to deal with, because, like, hey, you took all this guy's money and he's really a terrible guy. And then and then they're like, well, we didn't know that. Like,
that's how most of it works anyway. All the money gets from terrible people.
Yeah, all right, look, do you want us to like go through all the big money people and terrible things they've done? Then all the universities and all the world are going to have to like give back money, because they've all taken money from people who've got morally questionable things that they've done. And so they've had great basketball teams. I mean, great championship winning basketball teams under several coaches. They've had good football teams. Good. They've had Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson very recently. They've had. I would never call them a great football program. They're not.
They're always there. They're in the mix.
But they're an athletic department that's usually done pretty well, and is usually has done things. And when they finally started listening to their people, usually, I've said this before, the fans are wrong. If you guys have picked the coach at LSU or the Commanders or whatever, like, you probably make the wrong decision, Garrett.
Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure that if the Red Sox left it up to me to build the roster, I would get like 80% of the way there and then wreck it.
Right.
Like that's at best. Like, I could get 80% of the way there, when really and realistically it's like 50. Like, they'd make me in charge of the Red Sox, and I would make like a couple really big moves. Like, oh, Paul, this Catalina guy, where has he been? World Series after World Series, it's coming. And we're going to be the 27 Yankees. And then I would make a move that was just like, oh. that was a fan move.
Yeah, but I think you would do better than the Mookie Betts thing.
They'd have to pry Mookie Betts out of my cold, dead hands. That's what they'd have to do. Absolutely. So, I think that there's a lot of I just realized I should have been looking at this camera the whole time.
I've been switching back.
Okay.
We're good.
But I think that there's huge potential at Louisville. And in the new era of college athletics, like, you don't have to worry about like a 5 to 7 year rebuild. You can do it if you do it right, and you can win 12-team play. Like, right now, 12-team playoff, Louisville's in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they are built, maybe not for this year, because and this is admittedly a little biased. As good as they've been, I don't think they're going to beat Florida State in Charlotte in 3 weeks.
No, especially not if they play the way they did last night. I mean, and credit to really Virginia's defense early on, creating the turnovers that led to the touchdowns. Now they completely collapsed down the stretch and let Louisville win. But I think Louisville is in position to do good. I think they also are in a unique area where you can recruit Tennessee, you can recruit Ohio. Like, the proximity to all these places, you can get a lot of the guys that are overlooked or whatever. And then when you have an established guy like Braum, like, why wouldn't you want to go play for him? And even like the as far as like basketball goes, you get to go play in the Yum Center. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like it's a good setup there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, it is. It's a great setup. All right, so we have drilled down on Michigan a lot this week, and there's no new scandal news, right? So, and I've done it. Like I've tried it. We've done it to death. And look, as soon as there's new news and there's a suspension or not, or an attempt at not, we'll certainly get into it. But I do think we've. And this is probably all of us nationally in college football have kind of looked over like the fact that this is their best opponent that they've played by a long shot this year in Penn State. And Penn State has a legit, like, choke you out defense. Just absolutely do that. They do not have the playmakers on offense.
No.
If Penn State pulls this off, it is going to be they're going to channel the doomsday defense and the purple people eaters and all this to where, nobody's going to, like, Michigan's not going to be able to move the ball. They're going to get after J.J. McCarthy. They're going to have to lock things down. And I think that will happen early on in this game for a good while. But I just don't think that when it flips, that Drew Aller and that offense – and they've got potential, but Drew Aller he's here right now, right?
Yes.
He's here. J.J. McCarthy is here. And I think that is what's going to make the difference is that you've got a guy who's a legitimate first-round pick this year who's going to be able to make first-round draft pick plays because he's got Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and Roman Wilson on the outside, and he's got these, NFL offensive linemen that even on the toughest scoring drives are going to be elite. And Michigan has just been elite and rolling over people all year, sign stealing notwithstanding. They have been that good. So I think that there is potential for Penn State to muddy the water a lot, Garrett, but I honestly don't think that they can get over the hump because Michigan has just been so damn good.
They have. I think Manny Diaz is going to just go in his bag this week. And if you go back and look at the Ohio State game, because that's really about the only comparison you can draw, Penn State didn't lose that because of their defense. That was their offense couldn't get anything going. I think it's going to be eerily similar. And for Penn State to win this game, you're going to need to generate turnovers on defense. The scoop and score that got called back, that was really the difference. I think that killed all the momentum for Penn State against Ohio State. You're going to need those types of plays. And you're also going to need, like, kick returns and stuff because I don't trust Drew Aller. But I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair, and Michigan probably pulls away in the fourth quarter. But I think I'm interested to see how Manny Diaz approaches this because he's already taking shots on social media and making little videos and everything. So that's the matchup I'm going to be intrigued with. I trust Penn State's defense to make things difficult for McCarty, but he's just so good that I think ultimately his game is going to play out and be the difference.
Yeah, I think that you've got good potential here for Penn State to give like they with Ohio State. They're right there. Like all they needed was two good drives. And Ohio State showed on the defensive end how good they are. I'm very curious to see how the game goes when Michigan and Ohio State play 2 weeks from now. But I think that Penn State will give Michigan their first charge. Where Michigan's going to get challenged is when they play teams that are because they're not particularly fast.
No, but they're in the trenches. That's the
trenches.
Difference.
Like they've got. I'm not going to say they don't have speed, but if you look at the other teams that could potentially be, and Michigan could play any one of these teams in the college football playoff. How it works out right now, but if you look at Georgia, Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Texas, and Alabama. Like those are the teams that I think you can kind of reasonably say could all wind up in the playoff right now. Mm. If you look at all those teams, those are the teams that, because nobody they've played, including Penn State, will have that kind of speed and that athleticism. That is the challenge I want to see for Michigan is when they get in the CFP, like, all right, can you withstand and how different is it when you play Jordan Travis, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, or Carson Beck and Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, and like, can you withstand that?
Right.
Because that's how TCU beat them.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
That's how TCU beat them. Was they had Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis and Kendry Miller and a quarterback in Max Duggan, who very athletic and very tough and very much a gamer, and Jared Wiley, like all those things, they were matched, right? And then eventually beaten. You know, they were beaten in that game because there was that athleticism. Now, they will, like, if it was the WWE and we're talking about, like, the Royal Rumble,
right.
I'm taking Michigan against anybody every time. And I might take Michigan against everybody right now, but where, you know, the other teams have that advantage, where Ohio State has that advantage, is that they've got speed on the outside and they've got athletes that Michigan just has not seen this year. Penn State, I don't think, does.
They don't.
And unless they've been laying in wait for this moment, and then we'll see the breakout. But I think that's going to be the big difference.
Well, that's the thing that kind of hinders Michigan right now, is because when you look at how, especially this year, with how their schedule has been, they only get one opportunity to be tested by teams like that, and that's when they play Ohio State. I think going forward with how the Big Ten's going to look with the Oregons and Washingtons and USC and them coming in, I think that's going to benefit Michigan in the long run, because they're going to have to adapt throughout the year to face teams like that. And once they get into the playoff, it'll help them. But right now, when you only see it like once, yeah, it's hard to adjust on the fly, and that's when you really got to rely on your talent. But I don't know if their secondary really, I think that's the key, is I don't know if they have the people in the secondary to match like Washington's receiving core, player for player. I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think they have it.
Like if you've got Adunze and Polk and McMillan and all these guys out there, and Michael Penix sitting there. I think that's going to be the big question. Like, Michigan is beating everybody so badly. Like, I don't think that all of a sudden they're going to play Georgia or Texas or somebody that has these athletes and be like, Yeah. But that'll be the we're in for it now.
Yep.
And I think Ohio State's the best shot. The thing is, Ohio State at quarterback, they're
down.
They're a little bit down. Like, I think Kyle McCord's probably going to be a fine player, but
he's not what they've had.
But he's
at this point.
He's not Justin Fields or C.J. Stroud. Let's be honest. So, and they beat C.J. Stroud twice, but they do have those playmakers that will give them problems. Garrett, I'm going to flip something up here real quick,
cool.
So we can hit our guests on time.
Do it.
Let's go to the Big 12 segment that we've got coming up here. This quick little Big 12, kind of wraparound that Smokey did. For us, since he's off doing high school football today. We'll have Brian Estridge, voice of the TCU Horned Frogs, who faced Texas this week, up against it. Staring bowl elimination in the face. And then we'll have Tony Caridi, voice of the West Virginia Mountaineers, on the Mountaineers, and Neil Brown perhaps being the coach of the year in the Big 12. I mean, you could make a case for that and more. Coming up right after this, then we've got Grayson Grunhafer, we've got Josh Neighbors, we've got Sam Bradshaw, and we've got Nikki Collin today. Plus, Garrett and I talking college football with you. A top 5 at the end of the show. It's going to be a good one. This is 365 Sports.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgan Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgan Ford. Bird Colgan Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
The voice of TCU, Brian Estridge, with me. David Smoke on 365 Sports. TCU, Texas, coming up this weekend. Is this a year that we've seen a lot of Big 12 teams have success, Brian, winning close games, and then the next year it's hard to kind of match that, and just a couple of things have gone wrong, and then obviously they lost a tremendous amount of playmakers and talent?
Yeah, but you're right, though, David. I mean, it came down to one-score games last year for TCU, and they were successful in them. They had guys that would will their way to win. You know, guys like Max Duggan, obviously, who would do that. Quentin Johnston, who could take the top off of things. Kendra Miller, who would bust a long play when they needed it. But and they haven't had that playmaker this year to do that. They're losing one-play games or one-score games. I tell you, the other thing that really stands out, David, is the fact that this group, is not taking the football away like they did last year. You look at the losses for TCU in Big 12 play; they got 0 takeaways. You can't win football games doing that.
You had the quarterback change again from Chandler Morris last year. That worked because Duggan took over, was in the Heisman discussion. With Hoover young and raw, he's got a gun. What has been his strength, and what are, besides maybe inexperience, is he working on?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of different things. I think that, he can throw the football. He can make all the throws. There's no question. The problem is, with no quarterback behind him, he hasn't been able to use the second part of his game, which is his feet, which are pretty good. And the lack of the quarterback run game, as you know, in the Kendall Brown's offense, that's a really important part. And not having that, I think, has held this offense back. Here's the other thing. As good as Josh Hoover is, he's a freshman making, his fourth start, who we're asking to throw the football 50 times a game because the run game hasn't been there for TCU. And so I think that's been a real problem as well. Anytime you ask a freshman to throw it 50 times, mistakes are going to happen, and they have happened. And so I think those are the two big issues, the fact that there's not a quarterback behind him, so he hasn't been able to really get out of the pocket and show his wheels. And then secondly, because there's been no run game, He's been forced to throw it 50 times, and folks that, can confuse him and things of that nature. He's just a freshman, so, has nothing to do with his ability. I think those are the two things that add up.
And so here's Texas. They're rolling. They got fortunate, but they also really jumped on Kansas State and found a way to still win the game. They're really good, and this is a little bit of a different edge to them. This is not a team that's going to crumble like they could have against Houston or like they did against OU, but did not against Kansas State, although that was one where K-State had it at the doorstep. They don't seem to have many weaknesses. They play hard. The defensive front is fantastic. They do have the young quarterback in Malik Murphy. What do you see here?
Yeah, I think you see a couple of things. I think you're right. I think they're built the right way. They got a great defensive line. They got a terrific offensive line. They're much more physical than Texas teams that we've seen in the past. I think Quinn Ewers is going to start Saturday. I'll be honest with you. I think you'll see Malik, but I think Quinn will start in this ball game. So what does that mean for them? Do they rally behind him? Here's the thing about Texas. You got to withstand the first quarter because, if you look at Sark over the years, his teams come out and they run 10, 11, 12, 14 plays that are just magical, But then when they settle into their offense, you can tend to sort of live with them, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And so I think that's got to be the key for TCU. They got to have a fast start. They can't allow big plays by Texas early on. Somehow TCU has to have some success early to build confidence in a shaky team. And if they can do that, then I think they can hang with these guys throughout the day.
Do you think Sonny has handled so far what has to be a little bit of a frustrating year? He's not going to hold back on how he thinks. How's he handled 4 and 5?
Yeah, define handle. I mean, he's he's still talking to us, but I think he's frustrated. I think he's totally frustrated. But the thing about Sonny is he's always looking forward. So he's always talking about, okay, here's what we're going to do this week. Yep. Here's how we're going to get better this week. Here's what we need to improve on next year. And he's always thinking in those terms. He doesn't really look at that. It's really difficult. When I do a little pregame interview with him, and I always ask him about the previous week's game, and you can tell he's moved on. And he was that way when they were winning them, and now when you're kind of you're struggling in some of them. So I think the good news is he's always studying. He's always thinking about the next play, the next game, the next player. How does he get better? And so I think because of that, I think this team is ready to get back out there. And listen, Dave, you and I know that a game like Texas can cure what ails you. If TCU can come out and find a way, and they've had great success, won 8 of the last 11 against these guys. If they can find a way to beat Texas, then the rest of the year, it's not forgotten, but it feels a little better.
No question. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU, Texas and TCU, Saturday night, ABC at Amon Carter. This is 365 Sports. He is the voice of West Virginia Athletics. Tony Caridi with me, David Smoke on 365 Sports. What's it like, man? This program's playing games that matter in November. Yeah. And we know the story about where people thought they would be, and also Neil Brown with a chip on his shoulder. How much fun is it right now in Morgantown?
It's good. It's good to be back and winning because, to be quite honest with you, this is kind of, what we're used to. And having some subpar seasons obviously had great impact on everyone that follows the program. Obviously, you alluded to the preseason finish prediction of 14th, dead last in the league. And I do think, David, that they successfully took that, used it as motivation. They got through that really super rough stretch to open the season, which included opening the year at Penn State. And they went 3-1, and that was really the thing that turned them. We battled injuries. We've really not had the full complement of players offensively for much of the whole season. I think we're getting closer to that right now. In fact, against Oklahoma coming up this weekend, we should be probably as healthy as we've been on offense for the most part in a long time. So everyone's feeling good about it.
You run the ball, but not great. But you effectively grind people. And then obviously Garrett Green has given this team a toughness. Not that they didn't have some of that already, but it just seemed like he's that guy that everyone looks at. Not a great arm. He can run, but he just finds a way to win. How much of it is what he brings to the table?
Massive. So Neil is in his 5th season. This is the first time that he's had a quarterback that could legitimately threaten the defense with his legs. Garrett's that guy. And you just know how essential that is in today's football. that you have to have a quarterback that at times can extend the play, a quarterback that can just find a way to get a first down to keep a drive alive. And up until, Garrett, we really haven't had that guy. We've had more of a passing type of a quarterback. And, this offensive line, David, it was, from a personnel standpoint, in really poor shape when Neil took over. And he's built it up to the point now that you've got two definite guys that are going to play in the NFL. They're both from West Virginia. And a third that probably is going to get a really good chance, who's also a West Virginia guy. So it's homegrown, it's built, and they'll go into Saturday's game leading the nation 12 consecutive games with 140 more rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the longest active streak in the country. So they've been getting it done just the way he said. We're going to build the offensive line first, then we're going to run the ball.
So, Tony, Neil Brown, early in the year, questions about where he was, what his status was. You and I, we've talked about this before. And I was talking today on the show about, what Gundy's done at Oklahoma State's been great, whatever, and how Iowa State finishes with Matt Campbell, what Sark's done at Texas. But in your opinion, is Neil Brown in a legitimate conversation for Big 12 Coach of the Year?
Oh, wow. Well, I think he's a candidate. I mean, if a couple things happen. So
right.
He's got three left. You got OU, you've got Cincinnati, and then you've got your Bears. And if he comes into the home stretch out of this thing after being picked dead last, and he finishes up this season at 9-3, then absolutely a candidate for discussion. No question about that.
Right. I think so. I mean, there's a lot, I just thought that the fact that I even brought that up is kind of the kind of year he's had. So it's a tough team. I brought about Garrett Green, the offensive linemen. You brought them up. The defense, they kind of just always find a way to keep things kind of dummied down a little bit. Not them, but their opponent. What's that coming from?
Well, the key there has been they made a major philosophical change in the offseason, David. We were just here's the word bad last year, and not only in how the thing played out, but just in alignment. And they looked at it strong during the offseason. They said, we're probably doing paralysis by analysis here, so they simplified. And they've gone just basically zone drops. They know where they need to go. They know where their landmarks are. That allows those defensive backs to keep their eyes on the quarterback. It's led to many more interceptions. We had 4 total interceptions a year ago. Our cornerback, Beanie Bishop's got 4 by himself this year. So they simplified. They really focused and concentrated in the offseason on getting in alignment, especially for the teams that are playing tempo in this league, and we'll see it again on Saturday. And for the most part, they've done a good job. When they have not had great success this year, it's when they've been unable to get that force unit to pressure the quarterback. That happened at Houston, that happened against Oklahoma State, and it happened against Penn State. Those are the 3 losses. But the reason why the back half of the defense has been more efficient is because the front half of the defense has been able to pressure quarterbacks, get them out of their comfort zone, force some poor throws, and that'll be essential again this weekend.
I mentioned they haven't run the ball really well, but, man, they just hammered BYU. You kind of sat there with your jaw dropped at how one-sided that was?
Yeah, I never thought that was going to happen. Now, BYU's got its own issues, the quarterback situation with Keaton Slovis, but nevertheless, anytime you're able to do that at this level, that normally doesn't happen. And so, I was really happy with them. They took the ball on the toss of the coin. They went 75 yards. They set the tempo. They got a 4th down stop on BYU's first possession, and they scored again. And, again, it was one of those deals where the momentum just went. Control West Virginia, 14-0. BYU's trying to get this quarterback wired in. He did not play badly. He's going to start again for them this weekend. He's not bad, but, when you put someone in there the first time on the road, it was just one of those days. We've all been on both sides of those, and it mushroomed on them, and they were just never able to get any traction.
Last thing, they're playing in Norman. We brought that up. And, of course, Oklahoma has a huge record against most everybody except maybe Texas over the history of football. And they've won, I think, every time but once in Norman. But it's OU, and they're coming off a couple of losses in a row. It'd be unthinkable for 3 in a row, especially since they look so good early. But what would a win in Norman mean for this program? Oh, goodness. It would be massive. It would be that signature win for Neil. You know, David, 2 years ago when we were at their place, we have an illegal procedure on a 1st and goal. I remember that. I do, yeah. And then we had a snap. After that, we had a snap that went about literally 30 yards downfield, and they beat us on a walk-off field goal last time we were there. Last year, West Virginia beat them on a walk-off field goal. Mm-hmm. And so last 2 times we've competed with them. We've had some hellacious games with those dudes. Going back to Dana Holgerson, we had Tavon Austin, and we ran out of running backs, and they started him at running back. And he ran for 330-plus yards in that game. West Virginia lost 50-49. So we've had some games with them. This will be the last time, obviously, as Big 12 members, and probably, you know, who knows if and when they'll ever play again. So it would be so big if West Virginia could find a way to steal one. You're the best, man. Thank you, Tony, for giving me time today. We have a weekend coming up with more evidence afterwards, and thanks for your time. Thank you, David. Tony Caridi, the voice of West Virginia athletics on 365 Sports.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
During Jeep Adventure Days, save big on 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee Limited with values up to $5,500. Or 10% off MSRP on new Jeep Gladiators on all trim levels. Or 10% off MSRP on a new Jeep Compass at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst, joins us as he does at this time every single Friday. And Grayson, after the loss to Houston last week, it does feel like the last drops of optimism have been drained, and they're playing Kansas State this week, who is one of the best teams in the Big 12, and almost knocked Texas off the end. All that being said, even if Kansas State was kind of mediocre, the two things they do well are the two things that Baylor doesn't: stop the run and run the ball. It's like the mirror image. So this one could get rough on Saturday, couldn't it?
Yeah, it definitely could. And I think when you kind of look around the matchups that Baylor's had throughout the entire season, this is kind of one that's a little bit different because when you looked at Utah early in the year, that's one that you could have said is somewhat comparable. But I think the dynamic playmakers and also the fact that Utah was rotating quarterbacks with one being unathletic and then one being athletic is a little bit different. Kansas State has two very athletic quarterbacks who are big and physical and can run the football extremely well. So I'm curious about that. I'm curious how Baylor's able to kind of match up with that because in general this year, it hasn't been great stopping the run. And we even saw it last week where Houston just decided they weren't even going to really give the ball to their running backs at all. They were just running Donovan Smith a ton. And while he wasn't extremely efficient, 20 carries for 66 yards, it's not setting the world on fire, but it felt like every time he was carrying the football, it was in big, high-leverage situations to get a first down or to obviously score the game-winning touchdown. So I'm curious, this is a totally different animal against Kansas State. But the other part I'm curious about is, Baylor's had a lot of trouble with kind of these spread offenses who are throwing the ball all over the place. We saw it when they played Texas, even saw it against Houston, UCF some as well. So I'm curious if K-State tries to attack it in that way or if they just run straight at Baylor, which I think is conventional wisdom, but I actually think that would help Baylor a little bit if they're a little bit more obvious in their play calling. So we'll see. I'm expecting Kansas State to put up somewhere in the mid to high 30s, which, if you've watched Baylor this year, it's very tough to see any possible way that Baylor's going to put up 30 points on the road in Manhattan.
Yeah, it's tough. Grayson, how has this run affected recruiting as far as retaining who they want? Has it made them reevaluate also like who they need to be going after?
I don't know if it's really reevaluated anything. I do think that, they pretty much had the group of guys that they've been, wanting to add to the class and wanting to have signed, in December. We're just barely over a month away from early signing day. And I do know, some guys are still getting pursued by other schools. And, if you kind of see that, you might get a little nervous about some things, as, I feel like fans should. But I would also say that, Baylor's done a really good job of, really kind of, I guess, promoting what they're building. When you look at the fact that they're playing so many young guys and they're giving so many guys opportunities. And while it's been a struggle this year, young guys are still getting chances to play early on. That's really appealing to recruits, to be able to see a path towards playing time early in their career. And so I think Baylor right now doing a pretty good job of hanging on to some guys. I do know, you've heard different things, whether it's about, Bo Tate getting pursued by Stanford or Alex Foster getting pursued by Texas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. So there's some various things like that going on. But as of right now, Baylor's done a nice job of trying to keep that group together while also recruiting some other guys like Kuwan Lacey, the running back out of Lancaster, and also just evaluating guys. But in general, the big thing for Baylor is, going forward into this off season, yes, you want to have a good 2024 class. You want to have good recruiting classes for freshmen, but they're really going to attack the transfer portal. And that's definitely going to be an area they're going to focus on. We actually just saw really the first offer to a transfer portal guy come out this literally yesterday, Keyshawn Blackstock out of Michigan State. He entered the transfer portal a little over a month ago, and Baylor offered him. Baylor's one of 17 schools to offer. But I do think that's the area that they're really going to focus on once this season is over.
Grayson, I'm asking this next question with the assumption that Dave Aranda is back next year, because at this point I do think that's what they're going to do. I know that there's going to be a tough sell to the fans on that because of how they've played, particularly at home. Right now they're 1-6, and they haven't won a game against an FBS opponent since over a year ago, and all those things. But I don't see it from Mac's perspective yet, where he's ready to make that change. So that being said, do they recruit in not only high school, but the transfer portal differently, knowing that they're probably running a different scheme next year on offense?
Yeah, so I guess to the first comment that you made, I'm in agreement. I do think that Dave Aranda is going to get brought back for another season. Now, I will say that I do think if he's brought back, it is not a situation where, everything's fine and dandy. It's going to come with high expectations for next season. And it's going to require, changes to be made from a philosophy standpoint, from a roster management standpoint, from a effort, on the field standpoint, seeing wins, seeing losses, seeing the wins pile up, essentially. You're going to have to win football games next year. But I do think that you are onto something, because I don't think you can go into next year and feel okay with just, hey, we're just going to run it back. And what that would tell me is that they're probably going to have to make some staff changes. I don't know specifically what those are going to be. I know a lot of people have been, speculating that will probably be on the offensive side. I could definitely see that. I know that it seems like there's frustration there. And so if they do that, then yes, I do think that would require a potential scheme change. The question is, does it go to a, full spread offense, which they've kind of run a little bit towards the end of the year ever since the Cincinnati game. They've still run the wide zone, but there have been some more RPO type things that have happened. But if they go full into that, then yeah, they're going to recruit some guys that are a little bit different on the offensive line. You're definitely probably going to look at wide receivers as well. Even though you return Keytron Jackson and Monterey Baldwin and a few others, I still think you're probably going to want to add some depth there, especially if you're going to run more 5-wide sets. But yeah, so I do think there would be a change there. And defensively, they have a lot of improvement to do there. And I don't know how you can solve that, as far as I don't think you make a coaching change there, especially not a defense coordinator after bringing Pallage back. But I do think that they're going to have to change up some things with how they're recruiting guys on that side of the ball, because frankly, it's been utterly disappointing how that side of the ball in particular has looked, because of how much we know about Dave Aranda and how his defenses usually, do improve and usually do play well. He's going to have to get that group back on track, regardless of who the defense coordinator is.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Grayson. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him spend maybe a little more time in the defensive room than he maybe is.
Yeah, I could see that, but yeah.
Head coaches do it all differently. There's head coaches that are offensive play callers, and they walk into the defensive room and go, "Hey," and they're like, "We're good, okay," or vice versa and all that. So there's no one way to do anything. But I do know that he's a coach who's always tweaking everything that he does, or looking at different ways to be more effective. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to I wouldn't say he's going to take over the defensive play calling, but as far as like game planning, I could see that more. And maybe he's doing that now. It just their problem on defense to me is not scheme. Their problem is the front.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to kind of that area that I'm talking about when it comes to recruiting different types of players, because I think the way they've been recruiting and kind of the talent that they've looked at to fit their scheme, I don't think it's quite panned out the way that they were hoping that it would have. And so for that reason, I think you might need to change up some things as far as what do you think you need at linebacker? What do you think you need at safety? What do you think you need on the defensive line? And I know they've had some injuries up front, but frankly, even when most of their guys have been healthy, it has not looked great. And there were high expectations for Gabe Hall and TJ Franklin, and they've had moments, but moments have been really a big part of their career. It hasn't been consistency. And when you're not consistent down by down, results like what we're seeing this year happen. So I do think some shifts there. And, you know, linebacker is the area where it's kind of been a little bit baffling for me because Dave Aranda, you know, he's a guy who coaches linebackers extremely hard and has had a ton of production at that position. But my goodness, the last 2 years have just, that position is really struggling. And we've gotten to see some young guys play this year, and I have not seen the flashes that I was hoping for. And so for that reason, it's kind of like, okay, you really need to revamp that position. You're going to lose Matt Jones. You're going to lose Mike Smith, who transferred in for 1 year. You know, what do you really have there? And, you know, Starr is kind of thrown into that group as well, even though Carl Williams has shown some flashes, as has Corey Gordon. But that group needs to mature also.
Okay, Grayson, you mentioned earlier they're going to attack the transfer portal. They're also, and this is the case for everybody, but more so for teams that are struggling and have players that are talented that other people would want. And the pitch is not only the NIL, but like, hey, you won't have to struggle here. How much defense do they have to play on the transfer portal as well?
Yeah, you know, and that's a reason to bring back Dave Aranda. And I know a lot of people will argue that and say, oh, you know, coaches love or players love when new coaches come in. It's like a new energy and all this stuff. But let's be real. Anytime there is a huge coaching change, most times that does lead to guys leaving, especially really good players who are going to be pursued by a lot of big programs. So keeping Dave Aranda, I think, helps solidify that, especially as we've seen, you know, since Aranda's been at Baylor, he's done a great job at not losing guys that they don't want to lose and guys that he's able to keep, right? Because there are specific situations where they could not keep guys, right? And then there's situations where it's like, hey, we need different guys to be starting for us. We're going to go ahead and, you know, let you leave. Or maybe, you know, bad locker room guy or something along those lines. Dave Aranda's done a great job of that. And so has this entire staff. So you would think that if he does, you know, if he's able to come back, that he would have something prepared for those guys. And as we know, you know, the culture and the way the players like being at Baylor is definitely special. And obviously the NIL part of that's going to come into play as well, which Baylor has been, you know, getting better and better at over the last year or so. So, you know, they're definitely going to have to play defense. There are some guys that I believe should and probably will be wanted by many, but I also think it's one of those things where, you know, some of those guys got a chance to play as true freshmen. And so I think it's just kind of building on that. And the school that gave them that opportunity was Baylor. The coach that gave them that opportunity was Dave Aranda. And I think that's also a big part of any decision that would be made on that end as well.
Grayson Gameday for SIGM365.com. Grayson, thanks a lot. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Paul.
When we come back, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, Crystal Ball College Football. He'll join us. We'll talk all things Big 12 and get his opinions on Michigan and Penn State and some other of the big national games. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports. The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Now joined by Josh Neighbors, host of the Big 12 Watch on our sister station channel. I don't know. It's YouTube, newfangled words for the new millennia. But Crystal Ball College Football. So please go watch his show. Subscribe to that channel. Josh, you're rocking a Virginia Tech shirt today?
I am, yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Are you I know you're from Virginia. Are you a Virginia Tech guy?
Growing up, yes. My dad grew up going to games. My grandparents had season tickets for 45 years. My best friend growing up, a Virginia Tech fan. So I guess now I'm technically a Missouri guy because that's where I graduated from. Yeah. But I still keep up with Tech football. I mean, about as close as I do, with any non-Big 12 school. I have some A&M shirts from my dad. That I still gone to A&M games and worn maroon. With friends and all that. So I get people at the gym who see me every day have no idea what school I like because I wear Virginia Tech, I wear Missouri, but I've got all of the Big 12 schools as well. I wear those often to work out. So I confuse a lot of people with my wardrobe choices every day with schools. You just tell them I was an assistant coach. I get fired a lot. That's true. Let me tell you a story about Virginia Tech. So in 99, and this is, of course, in 2000, so right after Y2K, we survived that ordeal. I and some of my coworkers drove to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, the national championship game. That FSU won. And I was 19, almost 20. And in New Orleans, that doesn't matter.
they're not going to ask you for an ID. Like, that's not a thing that they do in that city. They know what they're built on. So voodoo and booze, like that's what they are. And so I very quickly, when I found that out, because I was meeting some friends in the French Quarter anyway, I very quickly like just tore through. It was my first trip there. Like not only just Cajun food, but every kind of hurricane or beer, whatever I could get my hands on. So within like 2 hours of being in the French Quarter, I was sauced up. I mean, just ready to rock. And there were, the whole French Quarter is either Virginia Tech fans or FSU fans, like just all over the place before the day of the game. And in the middle of Bourbon Street, the Hokie fans start doing the hokey pokey. And I thought, is there something in one of these drinks I had? Because I thought I had lost my mind. But it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
They don't do the hokey pokey as much anymore.
No.
I think it's more of the let's go Hokies thing you get a whole lot of. But I'll tell you what, those two fan bases in New Orleans, I can't imagine. That was probably some trouble.
Just here's the deal. Just mere hours after Sebastian Janikowski went to bed that night.
Right. That is exactly right. What a game, too. That was a great game.
Yeah, it was. And I remember, like, after the game, they asked Bobby Bowden to be like, hey, if you've ever covered the Sugar Bowl, you will see people out at night, and, like, the media's all out, hanging out late because you're in New Orleans, and if there's a player, you're going to notice them. And, like, everybody in the media saw Sebastian Janikowski out on Bourbon Street, and they asked Bobby Bowden, like, would he get in after curfew? And Bobby's like, huh, what? Huh? I'm old. Idea. Well, I'm an old man. I don't know.
I don't want to know.
I'm old. He pulled the Uncle Leo. I don't know. It's stealing batteries. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, Big 12 this week. Not as many. They're not the premier matchups last week, but this is where, to me, it gets interesting because this is where you can pucker up a little bit, right? And get nervous and lose something that you shouldn't, because now you are mere weeks away from the goal of making it to Arlington. And Oklahoma State really shouldn't have that problem on the way out. But Texas, for the next 3 weeks, even though they're playing teams that have all, except for two of the three teams have had, bummers of a season, they're still got gigantic targets on them because they're huge in-state rivals. And that starts this week with TCU, who would love nothing more than to just do one thing right and beat Texas.
And they've been very good at that. The first thing I want to note with this week's Big 12 schedule is it's very representative of what Big 12 schedules will look like in the future. You've got games from 11 a.m. all the way up until 9 p.m. Central Time, right? You've got Fox covered. You've got Fox Sports 1. You've got ESPN. You've got ABC. You've got ESPN Plus. I mean, they really have it all covered. All the time slots, all the windows, all the different ways to watch games, whether it's linear cable, streaming, also the big networks, the support networks, whatever. And so I think about that. Think about, okay, like this is a good reminder of why the television networks wanted the Big 12. Because also, too, that first window last week, Paul, I mean, we had 4 games decided by a total of 9 points, 2 of which went to overtime.
Yeah.
And 2 were decided in the very final play of the game, obviously, as well. So that was super exciting to see that, to have that. And this week, too, obviously lends itself. And yeah, I mean, it's so funny. We had last week a 5-way tie in first. And because of all the good matchups we had last week, that's dissipated. And because Kansas took care of Iowa State on the road, that number went from 5 to 2, right? And now the logjam is actually in second place. And now we're looking up at Oklahoma State and Texas. And now it's kind of the tightrope act, right? And it feels like there is no massive game left on the schedule for either of those two. They should be, I believe should be is the operative word here. They should be favorites in all the remaining games they will play. In Texas's case, I would have to think that they're going to be a double-digit favorite in the rest of the games they play this year. So now it is the pressure is on, right? The heat is on. The kind of the two have risen up there, and now we're going to see. In Texas's case, TCU's had a ton of success against them. You wonder, hey, is Chandler Morris going to play a role this week? And it would be very, very TCU. I think there is a lot kind of for TCU like here. Like this needs to at least be a performance where you show us that like there is still maybe money left in the banana stand in some ways. Like I think for this, as far as this season goes, right? Because this has been a really disappointing season, but beyond that, like it's been an extremely disappointing season considering what's happened before. So a win against Texas changes a lot of that. Obviously, Iowa State's going to be hunting for that win, and then Texas Tech, we all know too, and we'll see if they can round in the form. And for Oklahoma State, you get 2 of the new 3 in your next couple of games, both on the road. I forget who they have the last week of the season. Is it Baylor the last week?
Oklahoma State has 3 of the new 4. They have UCF, right, Houston, and BYU.
Right. So there you go. I mean, they get, that's a pretty nice way to go. And so the pressure's on. I mean, that's kind of the big story here. I think from a general standpoint. For TCU, they are staring bowl elimination in the face because 2 of their last 3 are Texas and Oklahoma, and they have Baylor next week. And look, Baylor on good years has trouble beating TCU. So, they hope that holds to form, but they've got to win 2 of their last 3 or they're not bowl eligible. And that after the greatest season in school history will sting a lot. Yeah. I mean, you look at the talent left in the team too. Like there's still enough guys left in last year's team that it should not be like this. And I'm worried for them this week too, because nobody, and I mean this, nobody, like there's one person, Dylan Gabriel, nobody's run the ball in Texas. Like nobody has lined up and punched them in the mouth. I don't really think Oklahoma did that much. And that game is weird. Like you have to throw that game out because it always is super. I mean, like there were block punts and there was, like illegal formations on punts and just ridiculous things happening. Right. So if you look at the season and say who has lined the ball up, lined up against Texas and punched them in the mouth and ran the football against them, nobody has. And TC, I mean, that's the hallmark of a Kendall Briles offense. I don't have to tell the folks in the Baylor community that they want to run the ball. That's kind of the number one thing they want to do. They want to run the ball. They want to spread you out. They want to run to the outside. They want to run inside. Like it's pretty simplistic the way they want to. And they couldn't even do it against Texas Tech. Monty Bailey's had a big season and he was really held in check against Texas Tech. I mean, it was the passing offense that did it for him. And look, that's where Texas can be hurt. And I actually think Josh Hoover's going to end up being, wherever he is, pretty decent. I think he looks like a guy right now like probably shouldn't be starting the Power 5, but most guys shouldn't be when they're freshmen, right? Most guys shouldn't be doing it. And I know they were concerned about that backup situation, and it's come to fruition here, sure. But like he threw a couple horrific picks against Texas Tech. But they were still in the game, right? They were still in the game at the very end on the road. They should be, but like they were still there. So I just think I watched them last week, and it's like if you can't run the ball and nobody has, it's a problem. And Josh Hoover will make enough mistakes on his own volition, especially now that we know Quinn Ewers is coming back. And I think that's one big thing. Like it seems like Malik Murphy was good for about 2 horrific mistakes a game. Yeah. Quinn Ewers maybe sometimes 1. Right. And, he is kind of that's the operator you want for the offense. I mean, I think there was a pretty clear difference between Malik Murphy. I know he was as good as he was to start off the game. I think that offense hums a bit better with Quinn Ewers kind of pillar to post. Yeah. So I'm worried for them. Yeah. That's why I was surprised last week that Kansas State, like, I know why you do it. Like the book tells you on the road, go for it. Right. Just end the game. Don't get into this. That was a bad call. Bad call. And the reason, like, usually you do it because Dana Holgorsen made a great call when he did it, but a completely different situation. Right. What I think that Chris Kleiman maybe missed on was let's see if what happens when you put Malik Murphy in the situation of don't mess up. Don't mess up. Right. We've kind of turned this on you. Don't mess up, Malik. Get into a freshman's head a little bit. I think he didn't do that. That's what I would have seen. I would have made Malik Murphy, I would have made him beat me in that pressure situation. Right, because you're totally right. Because at that point you keep handing him the ball. That's what you're functionally doing is like, all right, and also too, it's 4th down, so you haven't scored at that point. Yeah. And for me, I understand why you do it, but in that situation, when as the game has gone along longer, you've been better off, right? This is not some situation where you were up big and Texas came alive, and it's like, all right, the longer this game goes, we're in worse shape. It was like, no, the longer the game went, they started making mistakes, and their advantage in terms of physicality dissipated because K-State's offense started to find a rhythm there later on in the game. And so I know you didn't score there, but that's like not. I would wait to land the knockout blow. I bet Sark kind of took a long breath and was like, all right, thank God they tried to end the game there, because I don't want to keep chucking our young quarterback out here. I want to keep him near the script as much as possible. So that was, I think, very fortunate for Texas. But I'll tell you what, Paul, Texas is surviving now in games that they would have lost last year. And that to me is what is really encouraging for them as a program, right? We saw them blow that lead against Tech last season. That Houston game was a blown lead, but guess what? I know they got helped by a call, but like when the defense had to step up and make a stop, they did. When they had to run the ball down Houston's throat to get the go-ahead score, they did. So they're starting to do these things, and look, do you want to be surviving like this all the time? No, but I would contend too that like it's pretty good for them to feel some pressure in these situations. And the fact they overcame their mistakes last week is a good building block.
Yeah, I would say it's probably not a good trend if you're heading into the college football playoff, which right now they're not, Yes, so where you'd have to win the thing, you've got to beat two teams who probably don't do that as often as you have. But again, part of it is growing up, right? Texas was never had to be a real boy under all these other things. Like they were always like, they just couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And then here they are now, they're doing it. So while this might not be the year that maybe they win the national title, like I think everybody was hoping, they're close. And so now you build on that and you hope you can keep as much talent together and then replenish it because the transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. And that's not only guys you lose to the transfer portal, but, if there's a guy who's a difference maker between you and another team in the SEC and he picks them over you, which is going to happen to Texas more often than when they were in the Big 12, those are the things that will swing, playoff runs for them. But they're at least doing the little things well now, which before the little things were just either, they were death by 1,000 paper cuts all the time.
Yeah, and also, so if I think about them in terms of everybody else, here's a problem for everybody else in the Big 12 right now, at least this season. No, the controlling the line of scrimmage is like actually what normally ends up winning this league. It has in the last few seasons for the most part. Texas is so good up front. I mean, those early recruiting classes that Sark put all of his effort into, they were all concentrated on the lines of scrimmage. And that's paying off now. Like nobody can run the ball against them. It's just, I mean, I would be surprised. Like maybe Michigan could, maybe Georgia could, but like they're so good up front that's why when I think about them, Paul, and I think about them playing, let's just exclude Michigan and Georgia. If you were to have them play in Oregon, right? If you were to have them play, I think Washington's probably a bad matchup for them because Washington tosses the ball around a lot, right? So that might be an area. But like they could run the ball all over Washington if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think about Florida State too. I think they're right there with those teams.
Yeah. I agree.
I think that I don't think Florida State's gotten a lot better as the season's gone along. I'm not saying Texas has gotten a lot better too, but like has Florida State gotten markedly better as things go along? I still think Texas is probably one of the 6 best teams in the country. And so if they win out, Michigan's going to have to play Ohio State. So, right. So we're going to get a loser there. We're heading towards Oregon and Washington round 2, which, we'll see what that yields, obviously. And so like they have a really good chance of being a 1-loss conference champion, with the 1 loss being to Oklahoma in a rivalry game and a really, about as narrow of a margin as possible. And I would like Texas's chances to get in if that is the case.
Look, if they're within, like if those things happen, if they get cleared out, like that's what they need right now is win and help. But if they get the help, like they're
help's going to play each other though, right? I mean, the help all has to play each other. Right? Georgia's got to play Bama, that's behind them, and they already have the win over Bama, so that takes care of that. Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State will sort themselves out, we believe, and Oregon and Washington have some sorting to do. So you're kind of, just 1 week at a time if you're the Texas Longhorns, and I think they might end up where they want to be, and that's kind of on the doorstep of the CFP.
Yeah. On Florida State, as someone who's watched every one of their games, I would push back a little. They haven't gotten better. I don't think they've gotten better on offense. I think they're very consistent on offense.
I agree with that.
But I do think they've gotten better on defense. I think
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think they've gotten better on defense. But offense, that like sometimes you don't need like. They're good at it. I mean, like, how much more can you like? Believe me, I wish
they're not healthy too. They've been banged up.
Yeah, I want them to score 70 points in the first quarter. That way, I can relax. But I know it's not high school ball, so the clock moves faster.
Well, the Pitt game it wasn't like wire to wire dominance. And look, that Clemson win was a really good win early in the season. I think that at that point, it's kind of like, all right. If you stay healthy at this point, we should just probably see you in the ACC championship game, and we can see if that's competitive or not, whoever they have to play. So, I think FSU's in a pretty good spot as long as they're healthy.
Yeah, Louisville or North Carolina, depending on how Miami fares against Louisville next week. But so that's it's going to be different for them. All right, let's talk about Texas Tech and Kansas. The Tech with Bear and Morton's different on offense, obviously, but Kansas is just. They're just good. I mean, like, it's hard to even say it, but they're just good. And now they figured out different ways to win games than we better score 50 points. And then, hope that we're ahead where the other team's offense has to chuck it around and we can make a big play. Like, they are not by any means, stumping people on defense, but they're also able to make plays on that side of the ball in key moments. They've gotten so much better over there.
Yeah, the Oklahoma game was a big story with this because it was like that game should have been over, and they gave Jason Bean and company one more chance, and they went right down the field and they scored a touchdown on them, and they got the stop in the end too. And then last week, you have a signature win for your program. And look, say what you want about Oklahoma, but I was at Missouri and Auburn last year. And that was the weird game where Missouri missed a 20-yard field goal and then fumbled in the end zone. And like I was basically talking about with my friends afterward, being like, it's Auburn and they're down. They're down this year, sure, but still beating Auburn is a massive signature win on the road. It's just good for the program, and that's what that was for Oklahoma. It was a landmark for Kansas, landmark victory. You wonder on the road at Jack Trice how it's going to go. They led the entire game. Led the entire game, and I know there's some officiating stuff people complain about, whatever. But like they were hitting explosive passing plays. The rushing attack didn't always work for them, and they were good, man. They were good to go in all three phases. The defense played really, really well. I know Iowa State's offense, nothing to write home about, but Kansas is good. The one thing I think I think Vegas is paying attention to this too, is, we saw the body blow effect take them out last year, like really bad down the stretch. That doesn't feel like the situation this year, but I think there is some trepidation about, are they going to, is there going to be a November dip? Are they going to be able to keep up the momentum? But they're playing so well as a group, and there's a serious belief, and it's upsetting for them because they've got losses to both Oklahoma State and Kansas. So it's going to be really, really hard for them to get into the Big 12 championship game. But man, they have a legitimate chance at 9-10 wins this year. They have an actual chance at 9-10 wins, and that's got to be, I mean, like it is remarkable what Lance, he is unbelievable. He is, what he has done there, nobody else could do it. And he has gone there and done something that I remember I talked to Jesse Newell, who used to cover them. He covers the Chiefs now. And Jesse goes, at 5 wins, they'll build at 5 wins in year 3, they build a statue.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're past that now. We're way past that now. It's impressive.
Look, he's like, I genuinely believe him that he wants to stay there for the rest of his career. Like, he's 58 years old. There is something about something being your program. And in a very short amount of time, he's made it his, because it was nobody's. Like, it was a drift. And so he's made Kansas his program. And if you keep winning at a certain place, you don't have, like, he's 58. Like, how far is he going to climb, really, right? And I would say that the biggest rumor out there is Michigan State. And if you can make similar money at Kansas, then Michigan State, I would not move and work for those bosses, personally. I think that I would let somebody else try to figure out how to keep the Spartans in line, as opposed to me going up there and being the guy who's got to come in and fix things that are far from fixable from the head coach standpoint.
Yeah, and you can win at Kansas.
Yeah.
And they have an advantage that, not every school has. They've got a major metropolitan area within an hour of their school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas City produces a lot of good talent. Lee Summit, obviously Kansas City proper, like those areas do produce a decent number of talent. St. Louis is about, 4 or 5 hours away. It's nice to have another city there too. I mean, like they are not too far away from decent sources of talent. And for them, they're showing right now that, they dusted UCF this year. That game was, out of all of UCF's games against current Big 12 teams, that was like the least competitive of them. They hammered them, and we think UCF's going to end up being pretty good. So I think what Lance Leipold is showing is that you can win in places. And look, will there be some 5-win seasons in there? Probably. Yeah, it's going to happen at some point. They're blessed to have a backup quarterback in Jason Bean, who's as good as he is, and they've done a really good job, maintaining and retaining talent. But Leipold knows how to craft game plans to his team. His big challenge is keeping the guy calling plays on offense with him, because Andy Kotelnicki, to me, should be up for the Broyles Award this year for what he has done. I know the offensive numbers aren't always staggering, but what he has done with that offense and how creative and fun it is to watch, the way they run the football and the way they utilize their athletes, they know. You see the way they use Jared Casey. You see the way they use Arnold. They see the way they use Bean and Neal and Highshaw. Like, they are saying, I'm going to get the most out of all of these guys. And they do such a good job of it. And I think that needs to be applauded on a national level. I don't think Kansas actually gets talked about enough, considering it's almost like Kansas last year had more steam than they have this year. But this year is more impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Talk to you next week, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, formerly Neighborhood Watch on Crystal Ball College Football.
He always brings the heat every day.
He does, all the time. I love talking to Josh. It's a great segment. I've had a blast doing it since we started doing it on Fridays. So next, Sam Bradshaw is going to break down the X's and O's of can Baylor. Can you just build a brick wall? Like, can they just come out there with like a load of bricks to stop this?
Can they score a touchdown?
To stop Kansas State running just because they're at such a disadvantage. Like, one play per quarter, can you throw a brick at a guy?
I think we should motion for it.
Can you make them play without pads for 5 plays in a row?
Ooh.
Like, they have to take their shoulder pads off. You leave the helmet on, but shoulder pads off.
They might be built for that, dude. That rugby style, man. That rough.
5 plays in a row. We'll talk to Sam Bradshaw next. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports. The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Sam Bradshaw in his weekly segment. Sam, you and I usually kind of talk about like specifics to get into, but this game, it's really hard for me to ask a kind of a specific question about Baylor other than like, what can they do to stop a Kansas State attack that seems like, at least if you just put this week in a vacuum, it was specifically designed to beat them and them alone because they are the exact opposite of what Kansas State is.
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, Kansas State is an outstanding team who's very, very sound on the offensive line. They've got a couple NFL guys there, but more than just that, they've got extremely experienced guys. I mean, you look across that offensive line, each and every starter has started over 20 games for them. A couple of them have started over 30 or 40. You know, it's a very, very big offensive line, very athletic. I mean, Cooper Beebe's definitely made some highlight reel plays this year. Ask the Houston guy he sent into the bleachers.
Yeah.
You know, you've got incredibly strong weapons. I mean, they're not top to bottom, the kind of weapons that you'd see at like a Georgia or something like that. But you've got a 6-year receiver who's very quick, very good route runner, very good straight line speed. But you're also pairing him with some young targets, and of course Ben Sinnott at tight end is an incredible weapon for them. And they've got a couple different options at running back. They got 2 different mobile quarterbacks that can threaten you, and that passing attack is well developed. It's well schemed, and even when Texas was able to shut them down with their D line up front, shut the run game down, the passing game went off once K-State adjusted. I mean, after the first few drives where K-State kept trying to run the ball, after that, they were averaging a third of the field against the Longhorns, and that's a good defense. And having absolutely no run game to lean on when you're built off of that is not easy to do, and they were able to do that, which just underscores just how difficult these guys are to stop.
So, Sam, with Kansas State's 2-quarterback system, and then like it's been way more Will Howard than Will Howard and Avery Johnson. Like it was like when they first started doing it, it was maybe more of a natural split. It's been way more Will Howard lately. How do you expect to see them continue the split there?
Well, I think it's going to lean on Will Howard a little bit more, mainly because a lot of what they've done with Avery is a lot of quarterback run, and they've even gotten him involved as a wide receiver running on those fly sweeps. You know, his speed is a big differentiator, and he's definitely a very talented passer. He's dropped a couple of dimes in there this year, and he's going to be a hassle for the Big 12 in years to come. But I think they're going to lean on Will Howard for the most part. But you obviously have to be ready, because they are 2 very different runners. One is a runner that's a man after his offensive coordinator, Colin Klein's old heart, in the sense that he's 6'4 plus, 220 plus, and can, I mean, Howard's even heavier than that, but just can lean on you as an interior runner. And then you got Avery Johnson, who's built almost like a wide receiver / punt returner at 6'2", 190, and can absolutely pull away from people and make people miss. It's two very different types of runners that they'll probably try and scheme up a little bit differently in terms of what plays they call for them and how exactly they try and do that. And Baylor's going to absolutely have to have an idea on tendency for when they're in the game, and what if they're in this formation, how are they probably going to try and use this guy versus that guy, and remain sound against the pass, because this isn't just a wildcat package if Avery comes in there. He is a very, very capable passer. So you can't do a lot of the junk defenses that people have been able to throw at a wildcat package using certain blitz calls, certain fronts, certain coverages. You have to remain sound and still stop them. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge. You know, this is a Baylor defense that has had a lot of youth, and their primary nose tackle rotation over the course of the year has been a bunch of first and second year guys, or guys that were 270-pound DNs on the depth chart for whatever school they were with last year. You know, that's not exactly ideal going against this offensive line that wants to run A-gap power at you over and over again.
Sam, what has been your assessment of how Baylor has changed their offense in the last couple of weeks? They're running more spread concepts. There's still some wide zone in there. It is, and I think we talked about this last week, it's kind of a, you go to a restaurant and they have a different special every week. That's kind of what they're doing. It's like, all right, last week the special was the meatloaf. This week it's chicken pot pie. Like, you kind of have to do whatever you can.
Right. And, you know, this is Baylor's offense right now is like a pitcher that is not able to rely on their fastball. So they're having to go with sliders one week. They're having to go with curveballs. They're having to go with your changeup. You're having to do a lot of different things. Now, granted, against Houston and Iowa State, there was probably some schematic carryover. But Cincinnati and Texas Tech run things a little differently, you know, and they've really had to tailor things to what their opponents really force them into. Because if you can't just rely on your fastball, everything else loses its effectiveness, because the way they set this offense up is they want everything based off the wide zone. They want to get those linebackers flowing. Then they want to hit them with play action, not just deep, but also laterally. They want to get you flowing one way and put your pass responsibility the other way. They want to do different things like that. And they're really having to carve out what's in the playbook that these guys can execute, but also what puts them in a position to have success when that run is not working, because the line has not been up to par in terms of handling that. And, you know, it's going to be very interesting. Against Kansas State, they run a similar 3-3-5 structure to what Iowa State does, but they run it with a lot lighter personnel at defensive end and a little faster personnel on the back end in terms of coverage. So they are more willing to take gambles in terms of, we're going to blitz and play man coverage to get you off the field, or we're going to do 2 deep man under and really trying to deny the ball instead of just play zone, keep everything in front of us, and ask some bigger D linemen to hang in there against you. You know, if you're looking at Iowa State, I mean, their kind of starting defensive ends are 255 and 295. You look at the defensive ends in that system for Kansas State, you're talking like 240, that kind of range for what they have. I mean, you know, it's not the same, and they've got a little bit more quickness than the Cyclones threw at that position, but they're also trading off. You know, you got guys like Brendan Mott, Khalid Duke, Nate Matlack, they're all in the 240 range. Now, granted, they're tall and they have the arms and the leverage to potentially play a little bigger than their weight, but they also move a lot faster. And based off that, they do a lot more to really ask them to penetrate and disrupt you, which comes with some trade-offs. They'll be able to inflict some negative plays on the Bears, but if Baylor can scheme them up right and get them on tendency, you have a greater ability to hit some big plays on them, which for Baylor is very, very inconsistent. But given the speed that Baylor has and the difficulty they've had stringing multiple plays together, the more opportunities they have when the opponent gambles to potentially score from distance is honestly probably a better bet for this Baylor team than somebody who is going to be disciplined and force them to beat them over and over again.
Sam, how hard is it to assess, like, from the Baylor standpoint? Like, that last week's game was very similar to the UCF game where you had, like, you're only going to watch bad things for 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden, I say 3, like 2.5 quarters. And then all of a sudden you have this flurry of stuff that works out for them. But it's almost like what's real and what was just in the moment.
Right. And with the Houston game, both defenses played much better early on, and then the dam kind of broke for both of them as the game went on. I felt like Houston did a better job of getting Baylor into some conflicted positions in terms of the passing game, but also they stopped turning it over to the Baylor corners, which helped Houston significantly. And then Baylor was able to really get that run game going. And then even Blake Shapen on a scramble to keep the drive alive was able to do some things. And Baylor was able to adjust a little bit to what Houston was doing with his drop 8. But, you know, it's very similar to the Cincinnati game, very similar to the UCF game, in that one team won, but you really, no matter which side you're on, you don't really feel good about the outcome. You know, you did, if you won, you're definitely happy about it. Don't get me wrong, but as far as walking away from the game saying, wow, this was a decisive victory for either side, nobody's really thinking that either way. I mean, it's a game where each side got theirs, but one side came out narrowly ahead. You know, I do want to see what they can do with Kansas State, because that's a legitimately good team. And in all aspects of the game, I mean, they have their weaknesses like anybody else, but they're playing at a very high level defensively. They're playing at a high level offensively. And other than a couple field goals and an extra point down in Austin, they're playing pretty well on the special teams. It's going to be a very, very tough game for Baylor to win. And, you know, K-State's a complete team with a coaching staff who's been coaching and developing complete teams for a decade or more, going back to North Dakota State and winning in a very similar fashion with a very similar roster model to what they're doing at Kansas State. It's going to be a very, very big challenge for this Baylor team. And if they can pull it off, they will definitely earn some respect this week.
Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com. If you are not a premium subscriber, please do that and read Sam's stuff. It's always good. It's always in depth. And he does a fantastic job. Sam, thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Sam Bradshaw, S11 on the site, but he's done just great work. And like that was just a full breakdown there, Garrett, that we get every week from him. And yeah, this one was, you know, with TCU next week, I'll probably have more questions because like
right.
I can see a path where like they can probably hang with TCU's not as good. But I mean, with Kansas State, like, and if you're a premium subscriber and you read our predictions of the game, like no one's like, there's nothing you can say that like would lead you to believe that Baylor can win this game because they just like it's the worst. The only worst matchup for them was Texas.
Yeah,
like on their schedule this year, the only one on the surface that was worse was Texas.
And I think wrong button there.
Yeah.
I think this one might be even more challenging because it's on the road. Like it's so difficult to go into Manhattan, even if you're a good team. But when you are struggling, like, and you don't have the dudes, especially in the trenches, I just don't see a realistic way where Baylor can get anything going on offense. They've struggled scoring touchdowns all year long. And then if you got to hope, you really got to hope you get Keytron back. Like if you don't have him back, we've seen the difference that makes in the offense when he's on the field. And I think it was evident to me because Grayson kept talking about why like Armani Winfield and these guys weren't getting the reps, and he kept bringing up the blocking. And I was like, okay, that's okay. I just need him to go down the field to catch a ball. But if you go back and watch, like every time they would try to set up a screen or something to Monterey Baldwin and Keytron wasn't out there was blocks clearly missed and Monterey was getting brought down the backfield. So that's going to be a challenge. And then if you try to test that secondary, like Kobe Savage, like you really want to go at that? Like,
yeah,
it's going to be a difficult challenge, man. It's going to be a tall task for Baylor.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Garrett and I will go through some of the big games of the weekend. In the segment after that, we'll have Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin with David Smoke along. I know we don't do a lot of women's basketball. Nikki is And if I don't want you to, like, here's the deal. And I'm the guy that gets made fun of about this.
Yes, you are.
I am. And probably deservedly so. I will just tell you. I would listen to Nikki Collin talk about almost anything. She's a fantastic interview.
Yes.
She's
cool.
She's very cool. She is so in tune with so many things going on. If I was like, I remember like, thinking about like the first couple times we talked to her, if I was Mac Rhodes, I'm in an interview with that person and someone who can see all the angles of not just women's basketball, but just basketball as a whole, like the way things are going and the way that she picks things up. And she's very adaptive. And I think that you gotta really like sit down and listen. I know we're not normally a women's basketball show, but we do love to have coaches on, and we do love to have coaches that are really, really cool on. And Nikki Collin is that. And I have no dog in that hunt. Like, right. I may never get to do this one-on-one interview every week. I'm just telling you, she's a really good interview. She's really, really good. And so it's always going to be good and interesting to listen to her just about a different topic. And sometimes, look, guys, we need to change it up just so we're fresh, right?
Well, she's also a part of like the rules committee and everything. Yeah. It's not just like she has so much insight to give on both men's and women's side of the game. She is a tremendous interview anytime you can get an opportunity to talk with her. Absolutely.
So that's coming up in a few minutes here. But next, let's run through the week real quick. Rapid fire, Garrett. We'll talk about some of these games that are going to affect the national picture. This is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
I was just checking some of the stories. I know we were back. I knew it. Air Force Academy Superintendent Richard M. Clark has emerged as the top target to be the next CFP executive director. And he will replace Bill Hancock, who is retiring.
How happy are you about that?
I'm thrilled. I like 2 times we've had Bill Hancock on this show.
Right.
And one time I was in Hawaii. And the other time I was dealing with a family emergency. And did not get to ask him the questions that I wanted to.
If you had one question to ask him, what would it be?
Do you care?
At all?
Like, do you care? Like, do you care about what the fans think at all? Or are you completely at the mercy as a lobbyist of the people who are paying you? And have you advocated for the fans in any discussions you've had with the heads of the, like, that's the same question. Like, if we ever get to talk to Richard M. Clark, who's a distinguished general, like,
he looks like a bad man.
Yeah. But then the first thing I'll ask him, and maybe not as pointed as I would Bill Hancock, but how much will you listen to the fans and what they would like to see, as opposed to what Bill Hancock was doing is and saying, you don't know what's good for you, eat your vegetables. That's what they kept getting. We're going to do what we're going to do regardless of what you tell us. And the 12-team playoff, honestly, is the first time to me, like even the 14 playoff and the 12-team playoff, the first time that they've ever said, well, we probably have to change this up because things are changing.
I keep doing that. I don't know. Just going off, I don't know anything about the guy. I was looking at Ross Dellinger's report and looking at all his credentials and merits, not just away from the game, but what he did in the military as well. Super impressive. But the interpretation I'm taking away from it, and I'm hopeful for this, is as somebody who had played the game, played for a program like Air Force, was as successful as he was, and when you have those connections and you find Air Force in the situation where they are, where the whole what's going to happen with the Mountain West and the Pac-2 and everything, I feel like that familiarity, that type of connection with a program like that would lend him to be more inviting and willing to work for the betterment of programs in general than to be just a narcissistic lobbyist like a Hancock was. I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought, like, you would hear, like, he would say some things like, no, people will watch that.
No, I literally remember when we had him at the Big 12 and he said that. I was like, this dude's a clown. Are you kidding me?
Like, that, like, he caught, like, and not to say that I would, but, like, those two know that, like, especially when it comes to lobbyists who are politicians.
Oh, they're the worst.
Well, I mean, who's among the three of us is going to be, honestly, I would love, in my life, let me host one political debate. One. Just one. And then, like, give it me some long style.
Right.
And then when you go back, nope. Hold on, nope. Nope. Give me like a buzzer, like press your luck or something, where I'm like, bop, no.
Right.
That's what we need. Like right now, until we can like rein things back in, like we need a BS meter on people that are lobbyists or whatever, like in whatever thing. And when you ask a direct question, I should be able to hit a buzzer and go, you did not answer the direct question. Minus 15.
I'm just picturing Hector Salamanca hitting a little bell, like Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Dang, no. I did not ask you about that.
Right.
I asked you a direct question about another thing, and you bend it to something else. And you're doing it because people are like, well, that guy really, it would help if you had somebody just going to everybody, like, let me do a Republican, let me do a Democrat debate.
Torch them all.
And just torch them and go, guys, when I ask you a direct question, give me a direct answer. That's all I want. all I want. If this bill is here, how are you going to vote on it? And don't give me a whole thing about American ideals. Are you voting yes or no, and why on either thing? That's all I need to know.
Yes. Not the bull crap. Not the lies.
Yeah. And look, I also think you should throw up again, like Bill Hancock should have been sponsored by the power brokers of college football.
Yes.
Like, so he is the voice of them. So when you hear him talking, the voice of the power brokers of college football are telling you this is what they want.
Correct.
They don't care what you want. This is what they want. And so that would be my question for whoever is the next is like, how much do you care about what the fans say? Taking into account that, like, the fans aren't always right, but they are your customers.
Yeah.
So look, if it's not like McDonald's where you bring around the McRib once a year. Like, if you can't just be like, well, once in a while we're going to do this. Like, if your business model thrives on these certain things that work that the fans enjoy, then give the fans what they enjoy, especially considering that every decision you've made on realignment and everything has not been with the fans in mind.
No, not at all.
It's been with money in mind. So now that you've made these decisions, you've got these big, gigantic conferences, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to make sure that every week is as good as it can be? Because you've taken some things away from fans that they didn't want to be taken away. Now, some of them are happy to be at other conferences and have these other opportunities, but just for if I'm a fan of Oklahoma State, like, what are you going to do to assure me that what you've taken away from me won't hurt me more than it helps me? What are you going to do to make sure that I'm going to enjoy things? What are you as college football leaders going to do to make sure that this 12-team playoff does not just become an on-ramp for two leagues?
That's what's going to happen. Like, I don't see any way around that because, and I was talking with this to Jack about this the other day. I just feel like if you look at the shape of the Big 12 going forward, like, when they put the schedule out and there was no Texas and Oklahoma on there, it was the first time it really set in like, this is just okay.
Well,
who is going to be able to consistently get into the playoff? I know it's going and legitimately have a chance to make a run at a championship. And I know a lot of people will probably point to Utah, right? Like but Utah hasn't even been able to do it in the Pac.
Well, and what I will tell you is I do think it brings a whole new era of parity. But it's going to be a slow burn. But you always have to guard against the haves taking more.
Right.
You always, in every walk of life, the minute you let the haves have more, they're going to take it and not give it back. And they're going to tell you that really it's for your own good because you don't know how to have.
Exactly.
You don't know how to have.
You don't know what to do with this.
I know how to have. You should not have because you don't want the pressures of a private jet, man. You don't want it.
You don't know the struggle of that gas bill.
I've got to keep I got to keep making sure I've got a good pilot and the gas, and then it's just a lot. Look, don't even get me started on how much you don't want a yacht. It is. It's just there are those things, and I think that's a big thing that the next CFP director. I know I said we're going to talk about games, but I think it would be remiss
if we on a tangent.
Set me on a tangent. It's fine. No, but like it's true. Like Richard M. Clark, and a very honorable man who served this country in a fantastic way. Now you're going to have a much less complicated job.
Correct.
This should be fun for you. It should be fun. Having to all the things, and again, maybe even the Air Force, this should be fun for you. You are now in the phase of your career where you can do something that is something that people enjoy.
Right.
The decisions you've made, before you're at the Air Force Academy, all those things in your distinguished career, that stuff probably most days was not fun stuff. This is fun, and it's fun for people, and they love it. And so it is your responsibility, and I don't think Bill Hancock knew this, is you are not only the voice of the people who run it, but you have a responsibility to your customers to make it good. And there are a ton of companies, gigantic companies, that just don't get that.
No.
And, I'm always amazed when I get excellent customer service from a gigantic company. And then because it's still it's based on the roots of them, they just grew out of it. before Herb Kelleher died, that was what Southwest Airlines was. And they've gone through their problems because they stopped doing it the way that Herb wanted it done.
Right.
Because he believed that the person sitting in that seat that bought this ticket is the most important person on the plane. And that goes for everybody, right? And that's how you're supposed to do things, And I think that if you just say, like, hey, you don't know, like, this is better for you, you'll like it in the end. Well, look, you've got a lot of different fan bases.
Yes.
And part of the reason I think that, he's got connections in Washington, which you're going to need, moving forward. And which I hate that we have to get to that point. But yeah, make sure, are you a defender of the fans? Because I don't know, your job is to be the voice of the power. That's fine. We need good people in charge of that. But also don't lobby so hard for the people that you are working for that you hurt the people who help them.
Right.
That's where I think it gets kind of muddled in this. So that's what I don't think Bill Hancock ever did. He was just like, oh, we're going to do it. The fans are going to love it. Like, okay, we're going to do a playoff. How many? 4. And you're like, 4?
Yeah, that was terrible.
So we've been mad about 2, and you're like, all right, we'll double it. And you're like, no.
Don't wait, you'll like it.
Like, Les, thank you for finally doing that. But, you're just telling, like, if you eliminate opportunity for other schools, then you are just doing negative work for all of college. Like, I know they're trying to go to more, like, they're, leaning more towards a professional sports model. There's a lot of money in it, but there's more teams available to you. And so, which means, guess what? Like, it's not going to ever be as popular as the NFL, but you can get into more places and maybe affect more, this may or may not be related. I don't know. I remember one time we were at the Super Bowl and Von Miller was doing interviews and he was there on behalf of Old Spice. And I went up to the person and I said, and you know how this works. You were there last year. I said, hey, can we get Von Miller? We're Texas. Like, our radio station actually gets in, like, into DeSoto, his hometown. And, and it gets down towards College Station into where he is beloved.
A legend.
And they're like, well, we're only doing major markets. And I was like, look, I know it's going to be great. And he's going to be on in Minneapolis and he's going to be on here. But I said, what do you think means more to the people listening who might buy Old Spice now, hearing it in a place where he is universally beloved, or a place like he's going to do an interview in San Diego? Like, they may be entertained by Von Miller, but they're like, you know what? Nope, right guard.
Yep. Yes.
Von Miller says Old Spice, I'm going to right guard. Like, here, like, I'm telling you, we're gonna have an interview, people are gonna listen to it, and he's gonna say Old Spice. We're gonna have a bunch of Aggies that are gonna go, you know what? I'm gonna try that out.
Get the whole DeSoto locker room rocking some Old Spice.
It's not just about where there's the most people, and I get you have to do those things, but don't forget that there are people in other places that also have smelly armpits.
Yes.
Like, you can be bigger than just this. Like, don't overly simplify. That is a lot of the goal of what we do here. Like, we're happy to talk about every school everywhere when they have a good story, because we all have smelly armpits, man. We all say, like, let's all things like, yes, we'll talk about the big stories, and we should talk about the big stories because big stories affect everybody everywhere. But I love, like, when we had Eric Morris on last week, I love talking about North Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And what they can do there. Like, that can be, like, there's a chance that a team like North Texas might get into, like, make a deep run in the playoffs because they might be built just the right way and get just the right matchups. That's why we love the NCAA tournament. Should do more of that. When we come back, Baylor women's basketball coach Nikki Collin. This is 365 Sports.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-750-7500 759-8533. Chuck Verno at 720 North 64th Street. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway. And Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott. Proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
David Smoke with Nikki Collin, Baylor women's basketball coach, 365 Sports. And I want to start with this. Dre Edwards, the story of her patience and resiliency, and even yours in the entire program because of what she had to deal with. What did you learn about her and also just how she's handled everything? And my goodness, it's glad to see her play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, really a feel-good story. I think last year was obviously a challenge. A challenge that we knew was a possibility, though. Like, we did not ever go into it not knowing that it was a realistic possibility that she may not play and that she would have to sit a year to play a year. And in this day and age of student athlete welfare and waivers and everything else, so often you see players are playing right away. So it's actually unusual, especially a year ago. I think we're going to start to see them a little bit more and more, but things being denied. But, I just think what she did last year in terms of, rushing a sorority and graduating, the credit load she took last summer and into the fall to make eligibility even a possibility from an academic and a progress towards the degree, to graduating this summer and starting a master's program in social work. I'm really proud of the progress she's made. I think that, she may not have grown on the court as much as she could have last year, but I think it was a little bit about the acclimation process. It was about finding a comfortable space where she, we didn't load her too much. And so I think we're starting to see kind of the fruits of the labor now. And I think she feels really loved by this community and supported by this community. And so I think it felt really good for her to be out there and be so successful in the opener. I mean, this next game is going to be a big one because I don't know if people know, but not only is it a huge game for our program, but even personally for Dre, she was Pac-12 Freshman of the Year at Utah, and so I don't think she's been back, since she left after her freshman year. So. Going to be a lot of emotion involved in that one as well.
So it's Utah, and again, there's a break between when you just beat Southern, but also Utah next week. They're 5th in the country. Rankings can change between week to week, but obviously a heck of a challenge. And one, I get a feel when you look forward to this, you're going to find out, and they will too, who they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, we scheduled it for a reason. Now, truthfully, it was supposed to be, ideally the third game of a preseason WNIT that kind of fell apart in July. And so that's kind of why we have this long break. It was too late to find another team this week. And so we were able to replace games that we thought we would get with the NIT more towards Christmas. But I think it's a matchup that's going to challenge us, whether it was a scrimmage against A&M or the different types of teams that we have practiced or competed against so far. There's no doubt that Utah is the most veteran. They return all 5 starters, off a team that was an airball free throw away from the Elite 8 a year ago. And I think they're a hungry team, picked first in a really, really, really strong Pac-12, and have the preseason player of the year in Peely, who was also the player of the year last year. So they stretch you out, they make threes. Man, if you make mistakes defensively, they'll make you pay. So, we're going to definitely see where we're at and what we need to work on to be. I think we have the talent to compete with them. I don't have any doubt that we have the talent and the players to compete with them. But I think the seasoning can be a big part of these type of matchups. Do we share the ball? Are we connected? Do we get the ball where it needs to go and when it needs to go there? Do we take the 3 away? Do we give them one shot? Are we doing all the little things that seasoned teams do? And as veteran as we are, we still have a lot of new starters and a lot of new pieces. And I think there's no doubt we're going to be better in February and March than we are in November.
There's so much made of realignment. And then obviously the additions of what happened this year with the Big 12, but the incoming 4 from the Pac-12. And here you are, Utah 5, Arizona not long ago won a national championship. Also, we just saw what Colorado did to the defending national champions and looked good doing it in Arizona State. So as a women's basketball coach and the new teams around the corner, even though you're focused on now, was that somewhat overlooked in your opinion about who's about to join the conference?
Well, I think there's, obviously when it comes to realignment, it's football driven. We all understand where the bread is buttered in college sports and understand that it certainly impacts us in a big way. I think, this year, the additions that we had are programs in Cincinnati and UCF and Houston that are going to benefit, from Big 12 affiliation and recruiting in a lot of different ways, but maybe don't bring the history or the rankings. But then you add these Pac-12 teams and, Colorado got over the hump 2 years ago and have been in the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row, besides obviously, a huge upset to start the season. Even Arizona State, who's the non-ranked team in that grouping, probably has as good a history as anybody in the group, but Charlie Turner-Thorne retired a little over a year ago. And so they're just still in that transition phase, new coach, new system, and, doing things differently. So, I think Arizona, Colorado, Utah turned the corner and just are really talented and know who they are. And they went from a team that knew what they were doing and how they were doing it to a team that's now recruiting players in the top 20. Like they were winning with players, top 100 kids, fringe top 100 kids now because of their success. Their recruiting is elevated and they're in the mix on, top 20 kids now. So, I think they're really going to add depth, talent, maybe open up the West in recruiting in a lot of ways. I mean, you have to look at it as an opportunity, but there's no doubt that it's, especially with 16 teams and an unbalanced schedule. It's going to be a unique situation that we're all going to be kind of, and not just us, it's going to be in the Big Ten. It's going to be everywhere, just these, kind of super conferences and the dynamics of, you're going to have fewer conference champions. It's harder to win a conference championship. So there's no doubt that they're going to add a lot of strength to our league in 2024.
Sarah Andrews came in with a lot of hype and is All-American when she came out of high school, and she's been a part of this program through a lot. And then she went over 1,000 points, which was pretty cool. But what I hear is, yeah, that's great. But what I hear is her growth as someone who now is a leader, not just because she's an older player, but because of the way she has now kind of accepted or understands her role of what you need from her to be a leader on your basketball team.
Yeah, Sarah Andrews is a special talent. There was no doubt. When I took the job, I certainly knew of her. She hadn't played a lot as a freshman. She was a player that was so hungry to get court time that first year, but also was very passive in terms of, we had Jordan Lewis, who was a 6-year senior, and Queen was a big personality, and Alyssa Smith was her best friend and certainly the best player on our team. And so because of that, she was able to just kind of play her game and do it really effectively, efficiently. I thought arguably she doesn't, break her wrist in February that year and isn't playing hurt, that we would have had a better chance to finish the season, a little bit differently. But, I think she's making strides each year. It's not natural for her, but I think it's something that you need to naturally do from that position. Also with the time that she, has been here and understands our system. She's our best player, but she also needs to get the feel of, like, when do I need to give it up? When do I need to involve everybody else? And why do we do, what we do? And I think that's her greatest strength, is that she understands that her teammates are looking for her to lead. They need her to lead, mainly on the court. It's not always about what somebody does off the court. It's about when you step on the floor and you get between the lines, they're going to listen to the person that knows what they're doing, who's been there, who's done that, and who has the ball in her hands the majority of the time. And so, I think it's been something sporadic that she did a year ago. There were times when she was an unbelievable leader and times when she would disappear a little bit as a leader, and it would fluctuate based on, kind of how she was playing. And understanding that it makes no difference whether she's making shots or missing shots. That role can't change. That's got to be the one constant, that she's leading and getting people where they need to go.
It's not that you didn't coach women's basketball at the college level before, because you have, and then you went into the WNBA, and that's a different animal, although it's all basketball, and you have to make shots and play defense, etc. Where are you better now as you enter this year at Baylor in this particular year and getting back into the college game that you love so much?
Yeah, I think where I'm better, and truthfully, I think you're always still finding your footing. I'm really only in year 6 as a head coach, and so because of that, I'm learning in a lot of ways. I think where my greatest strength is being more direct with our team. I think sometimes I've always said that I really do care about these kids, and relationships matter to me. And I don't just say that because it's a tagline and you have to say it to get recruits and get players. But I actually do want our players to be happy. And when you've got 13 players and that there's those defining moments of who's a starter, who's a role player, and who's a cheerleader.
Yep.
And those are hard things, especially when for us right now, there's not a lot of difference. Like when you get past 2 or 3, and then it's 4 through 9, 10, 11, depending on the game, depending on the matchup, depending on the health, all of that. But really being more direct in terms of what the expectations are, not holding them accountable to those expectations. And, it's because it's one of those things when you're in the pros, it's truly about managing personalities, and it's game planning, and it's so little of college athletics right now is game planning. So little of it is X's and O's. Like, I used to sit around during the season in the pros, and I was either watching film, preparing a game plan, or doing a little player development stuff, but so little of college athletics right now. It's making sure they're going to class. It's wondering, I just got out of a meeting to know where are we at in different classes, who's struggling in which class, and where are we at physically, where are we at mentally, where are we, and so much of my job is not just putting them in position to be successful on the court. It's making sure that I can get them in position to be successful on the court. And so, it's a little bit parent, it's a little bit counselor, it's a little bit of everything all the time. But I think I know the ebbs and the flow to college sports more and more. And even though I was only gone from college sports for 5 years, like, Gen Z is different. This group is just different. And it's not me to bash them. I mean, I've got 3 kids that are Gen Zers, and so, but it's about understanding how they think, how they move, what they're motivated by, like how I can get through to them, how I can get the most out of them. So that part doesn't change. The idea of being a coach is about motivating and pushing buttons and helping them, kind of unlock their potential, but it looks different generationally. Like, and I think some of that is, we're still trying to figure out. I think all the coaches in the country are trying to figure it out a little bit, but you have to look at it as an opportunity, even though at times you're frustrated by certain things and how they're said or how they're perceived. The idea is still like, this generation is going to do huge things in this world. So how are we guiding them to help them accomplish those things? And when they leave here, they're going to leave here better, regardless of what they do, whether they're professional athletes, whether they're go to grad school, whether they're going to be doctors, lawyers, whatever it is, IT specialists, that we've prepared them the best of our ability to be good leaders, in the world.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my last question. Nikki Collin, Baylor women's basketball coach, Utah, Tuesday in a great matchup at the Farrell. And we'll have Nikki on at least 2 or 3 times a month, about every other week, and can't wait for those times. It's great to get you on when I can. You mentioned being a parent. Yes, you are. You mentioned 3 kids. Yes, you have. And now 2 of them are right there with you on campus. How much is that with Reese and Connor so close? And because I know that it was difficult because of it. They're in the East Coast, you're here, and that, especially when you first took over. How much has that at least allowed you to go, yes?
Mm-hmm. It's it's almost like therapy without a therapist. Like it's my son, when we're in the practice gym, usually at some point during practice, I'll look up and he'll be doing homework on my balcony. So I see him almost every day. Like, he's super invested in terms of watching the team and really, he told me it's become more difficult to watch the games now because he's more invested. Before he knew when I was playing, but once he started, like, okay, that's what she can do. That's what I know she's capable of doing. I think he's invested at a totally different level, but he's just around a lot, and we cook dinner occasionally together, and my son loves food and loves to cook. He learned to cook during COVID, and so it's just kind of his thing. And then Reese is just busy all the time, with cheer, vertical flow, different things that she's doing on campus. Her schedule's a little more jam-packed than Connor's. But, I do see her at least 3 or 4 times a week, and she pops over, just not as long. But, it's been so good. But the bigger part of it for me is, and everyone who's a parent knows this, you're only as happy as your most unhappy child. And so they love Baylor, and they've really enjoyed their experience here so far. So as great as it's been for me to have them close, and even to have Connor doing his laundry at the house and be around, it's way more therapeutic to see them kind of growing and engaging and being a part of this Baylor community and loving being students and the growth that I'm seeing in them in the classroom and everywhere else. So great to have them here, but even better that they seem to really be enjoying it. It's not that they're just here because mom's here or, they got a discount on their tuition.
Hey, can you discuss Inez signing with you? Is that official now? I guess it is because you posted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
tell everyone
official.
what she brings to the table. She's from Bulgaria, played up in New York and the AAU.
Yeah, I've tried to think of someone that she reminds me of that Baylor fans would know, and I don't have my finger on that yet. But what I love about her, she's so confident. Like there's just a swagger and she's a kid whose mom was a professional women's basketball player well into her 40s, like past Monty Ginobili.
Wow.
In terms of, and now she coaches and runs an academy in England, but is Bulgarian. And so Nez just grew up in the gym. She grew up and came to the United States just like, I remember the first time I talked to Diana, her mom, and her mom just said, like, look, like, you go where you're going to grow. Like, and if that's your dream is to play basketball, like, that's why I let her leave at 15 to come over and play in prep school in America. And she was kind of a late bloomer in terms of like probably the club scene. But I think she's got really, really deep range. Deep range from three. But she can make all the plays off the bounce, but it's really like the thing that always stands out to me, with point guards or guards that are combo guards and can play either guard position is, what do they act like when things aren't going well? And the Gauchos weren't the best AAU team this summer. They had some talent, but, I probably watched them lose a game by 30. And she was still in that huddle, talking to them, leading them, getting them shots. Like when I see that, like I see someone that isn't just out there to get her own shots up, especially when you're down. It's like she's still talking, she's still competing. But she can really score it, off the bounce. She can make the passes. And then she's just a feisty defender. I don't think people are going to talk about her defensive prowess, and maybe it's not her greatest strength because of her shooting ability. But I think she really gets after it. But she's a gym rat kid. She loves the hoop, and I think that's a big part of what I loved about her from the first time I saw her is you can tell she loves to play, and there's like a competitive edge about her.
Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate it. Glad we got this one, and one of many to come, and good luck coming up against Utah. I'll see you there at that one. Nikki Collin, Baylor women's basketball coach on 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Hope you enjoyed that segment with Nikki Collin. Again, we're not always going to do things like that, but we are going to pivot and do some things other times. And I'll just tell you, Garrett, for us, it's a nice palate cleanser, right?
Yes.
You know, we eat a lot of steak, and we love steak. Texas Beef House. That's a tie-in. That's what you call it.
Well played. Well played.
But, like, sometimes, you know, we want chicken. Sometimes I want shrimp. Sometimes I want it all, and I'll go to a Brazilian steakhouse, and they'll just slice meat in front of me.
Oh.
I've not been to one of those in a long time.
I've never been one. I need to go.
I could never convince. I mean, Amanda would probably go. But, like, we need to go one time when we're in a town that has one, like a Fogo de Chao or a Tejas de Brazil. And they just – I mean, I can't really – like, I know this is going to sound weird, but I can't really eat that much. Like, my appetite – like, my face and my body and my appetite, like, real appetite don't match. I get it. Before you make your fat jokes in the comment section.
Leave my man alone.
I get it. Like, you know, you're not saying anything to me I don't say to myself every morning. So, you know, it's fine. But they're like, they just come and they're like, would you like this? And they're like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Yeah. What kind of meat is this? Don't care what kind of animal it's from.
That's why I don't care. I'll
slice
eat
it. Yeah. I mean,
meat.
most of it's beef and all that, but like it's steak, but there's all kind of different things. Oh my God. It's great. Anyway, I digress. The top 5 coaches who brought hope to their programs. And I am fully willing to acknowledge that 2 of the 5 guys on this list may be at different places very soon.
Yes.
But 3 of them, I actually don't think so. And one of them is the first one we're going to talk about, Deion Sanders. Look, I know that Colorado's fallen on some hard times this year, but that was always probably going to happen given how good the rest of the conference was. But it is year 1, and he will get it figured out.
Yes.
I truly think, because here's the awesome thing about people who have gigantic egos and lots of bravado. They're either absolutely going to deliver or they're absolutely going to fail.
Correct.
And I think Deion is someone who's shown you throughout his career as an athlete and a businessman and a broadcaster that he's not somebody who just lets things go and, you know, lets him just be. Like, oh, this wasn't it. Like, he's going to make it work. And so as much as you may like him and don't like him, he doesn't care. It's all fuel to him.
Correct.
But people are talking about Colorado in a way that they never have and maybe never will after he leaves. But unless he sets up in a place where Colorado just becomes such a cool place to be, you know. But for that university, for the front door of that university, for people like, oh, I'm going to be where Deion Sanders is. Like, that's an amazing thing. And so he has brought hope to a program that people had completely forgotten about.
He has. I also think the whole move, right? Like, we knew Colorado, the Four Corners in general, were going to come to the Big 12. But the main driving factor for Colorado to make that leap of faith and be the first one without hesitation was Dion.
Yeah.
Because he understands the value of being able to go back into the Metroplex, and he's got the roots here. He understands all of that. I think that's going to be important coming back to the Big 12. He could do some great things with that program. He's going to get a lot of great players. My only concern is how and it's going to come over time and learning, but I don't like how he handled the Sean Lewis situation.
No, I bet you he probably doesn't either.
Yeah, but I think things like that
you got to learn.
Yeah. You've got to get out of your own way and understand. You got to also as a parent, you don't want to see your son get back there and get drilled nonstop. Yeah. But realistically, that's not on Sean Lewis. There's other things around that.
Here's the other thing that will show how good of a coach he is. When you didn't make the quarterback and the safety, or what's Shiloh, defensive back?
Yeah, he's DB safety.
Yeah, DB. So, when you didn't make them, literally
yes.
provide half of their genetic makeup, what's that going to be? Because he's always, at Jackson State and at Colorado, he's had Shedeur, right?
Yes.
So that will be telling, because if they had not had Shedeur, this would have been really, really rocky.
Right.
Really rocky. And I'm not, no pun intended with Colorado, but it would have been a lot rockier. And so when you don't, when you don't have especially the quarterback, and no offense to Shiloh, he's actually been probably their
He's gotten better. Yeah.
He's probably their second best defender, not named Travis Hunter.
Yes.
But when you don't have those guys, when you don't have Shedeur, who can be who's the next quarterback, who's going to, because it's quarterback driven sport, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to get a good one.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to go be a quarterback for him?
No,
why wouldn't you want to go play? It would be
the only reason right now is he hasn't gotten any linemen in front, but that portal,
it's about to open up.
Yeah, it's about to open up. Number 4, Matt Rule. Nebraska hasn't made a bowl since 2016, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 7 years. They're on the cusp of it now. Look, they've got Maryland that they've got to beat this week to do it, or they've got to beat Wisconsin or Iowa to do it. I would think they can
beat
win
Wisconsin.
Yeah, they can win one of those 3 games, right? They have not beaten Wisconsin all that often, though, since they joined the Big Ten, which is part of the problem, which is why a once proud fan base is reduced to the stress that they have. But look, if you really watch Nebraska, this 5-4 Nebraska team, you see things you have not seen in a long time.
Oh yeah,
disciplined, and they're still a really dumb team, but that takes a long time. It's not. There's a Stephen King movie named The Lawnmower Man with Pierce Brosnan in it and Jeff Fahey, and it's not good. But the point of it was Pierce Brosnan was the scientist, and the guy who was mowing his lawn was had a head injury or something and was challenged, all that. And so then he did these experiments on him with virtual reality, and then the Lawnmower Man became this really
Right.
It's not that. You can't you can't do that. And then really scary. Although the movie, not scary. The book, the story that he wrote, very scary in the way he wrote it. The way it came.
Books are always better.
The way it came across on film.
Right.
Sometimes the movie is better than the book. Jurassic Park it's a really good book. It's a great movie because you need the visuals, right?
Right.
But the book's usually better. But yeah, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be all of a sudden, or Captain America, where he went in the scrawny little kid, and because he was the good guy and the most pure of heart and all that they found, and they gave him the super soldier serum, he was they take him out and he's just ripped and running after and kicking people's asses. No, it's not going to be that. Again, trust the process, but I do think that Matt Rule can make that process go faster than he has at Temple and at Baylor.
I think he already has.
Yeah.
I think that's a clear, if you just look at this season, how everything's progressed, he has done better or had more success and got it. His process has escalated.
They absolutely did not feed him a 2024 schedule that's going to help the process.
No.
They got one of the harder ones, but yeah.
But I think though that he has brought a spark of life to that program where you have generations of former players who probably wouldn't have sent their kids there or, that are going to want to come back and be involved with the program. Yeah, he's definitely done things, and they have the opportunity. I don't know if they'll ever get back to what they were.
I think they can. I think they can because I think they have the want to. Like
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to. They have an obstacle course unlike anybody else. Right?
Yeah.
For example, Miami's in the exact same spot as they are. Right?
Yeah.
Like the same, they were ones who were clashing over national titles and all that for years and years and years. Miami has that, but their path is a lot clearer.
Yes.
They've got to get past Florida State and Clemson. Like realistically, North Carolina maybe, they have 3 teams as where Nebraska has to get through USC and Oregon. Michigan and Oregon and Washington and Ohio State and Penn State and Wisconsin. It was with Luke Fickell.
That's coming.
That's coming. That's coming. So there's that. Yes, it's harder, but and maybe one day Florida State and Clemson. Who knows? But then they all have the same problem. But yeah, I do think that there is a level that he can hit.
Right.
And one thing he's never really done, I'm curious to see, is he's never really had an elite quarterback.
Or stayed long enough to truly build something.
Yeah. So now he's going to have to at Nebraska.
No, I think he will.
Yeah,
I think that's the perfect
yeah.
situation for him to do that.
Yeah, that's the job. I think right now there's only one other job that could get him. And that would be his alma mater at Penn State. And even then,
it'd be about the same scenario.
If you've got it's the same. If you've not got Nebraska winning enough to where Penn State wants to hire you, do you even want to do that? Other than sentimentality, because Nebraska, I mean, it is it's their lifeblood. Is the football in that state. Number 3, Mike Elko at Duke. This is the first one I will tell you I don't think is at Duke as long as some of the other people on this list.
Correct.
I think Mike Elko will wind up somewhere else because I think there's going to be a great opportunity for him. And if Riley Leonard was healthy this year, all the way through, they might have a totally different outlook. But Riley Leonard could come back.
He should. Honestly, I mean, I don't know where his name has been mentioned. I don't even think he has really been mentioned in the draft.
There are people who have him ranked. He's that feel like Dane Brugler says he's an NFL quarterback, but he doesn't know what what his future is, and there's things he's got to get better at.
Drake May. That's exact type of scenario.
Yeah. So I would say Riley Leonard either comes back to Duke, or what Duke will have to fight off is that
the Sam Hartman thing.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. Where Duke has NIL, but the NIL is for the guys with the round ball, not the pointy one. And then I'm sure they're getting it for football. There's no doubt in my mind. But if it came down to you, hey, get Cooper Flagg here or keep Riley Leonard, most of the Duke money people are going to be like, well, I'll take Cooper Flagg for a year.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes. I mean, that's what they love. That's what they love. But I could see Mike Elko, if A&M is open, being back at A&M. I could see Michigan State for Mike Elko. I could see a lot of places for Mike Elko. I'm telling you, Michigan State, even though they're going to pay a lot of money, I would be nervous about going there because they don't run things well.
If I was a coach, especially like Elko, I would not go there just because of everything around you.
I want another guy to fix it before I go there.
Yes.
That's what I want. I want somebody else to fix it, and then I'll go there. That's what I would want. Number 2, this guy's not going anywhere as long as he's winning. Jeff Brom is back home. He and his family are the Broms and the Mannings of Louisville, and what they are doing is absolutely in year 1 their roster is not chock full of dudes.
Plummer's okay. He's not like an elite quarterback.
He knows the offense because he was with Brom before. But Jawar Jordan is the only player they have that not the only, but he's the dude you're well, he can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Anybody would take Jawar Jordan. But they're doing it with just better coaching than they had before. I don't mean to knock Scott Satterfield. That situation became untenable really fast. And
he never had a chance.
No, I don't think he ever did have a chance. I think that when he got there, the first question at the press conference, if you'd asked the fan, would have been why are you not Jeff Brom?
Right.
Can you turn into Jeff Brom? Would you be willing to bring Jeff Brom here? Can you call him on the phone and have him coach the team over Zoom? Would you do that? we want Jeff Brom. So what did I do wrong? You were not Jeff Brom. Like, that was the thing. That's what they wanted, and that's what they got, and it's working out. And look, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Jeff Brom. Like, even though, like, everybody loves him, that's an equal amount of pressure to, like, keep that going, because we've only wanted you. You're the only guy we ever wanted to coach this program, so you better do well and don't disappoint us, because fans don't have compassionate spirits when it comes down to it.
Not at all.
You win or you go, and that's how it is. No matter how it is, he might have a longer leash than a lot of people, but he's not going to, it's not just going to be one of those things where, he can go 4-8 3 years in a row and they're like, oh, we love you. Like, nope. Ask Scott Frost.
I think him at Louisville, I don't see a way he goes 4-3. Like, I legitimately think his floor there is probably like 7 wins.
Yeah, I think they'll have years where they lose some good, a bunch of good players at once.
Right.
And then maybe it just doesn't, but he'll do well there. And he'll own the area too.
Yes.
Like, he'll get the best the best Louisville kids from Louisville who would go to Louisville, he'll get them to stay there. Yep. Like, that's it. So, if there's a great high school quarterback that comes out of Louisville, he's probably going to stay home.
Yes.
Like, that's a big deal. Like, if there's big offensive lineman from Louisville doesn't want to leave home, they'll get him. Mm-hmm. Like, those are things that he'll be able to do that maybe others wouldn't. But I did wither the tail of Scott Frost, right?
Right.
You don't want to do that. And I do think that I think Scott Frost will be a good coach again somewhere else. And I think he's an analyst somewhere.
He's an analyst.
And he'll be an offensive coordinator. I don't know, hey, Iowa, call Scott Frost to be your offensive coordinator.
He's one of a few options. I got one that I think would be perfect there.
I actually think that there's one here that would be good.
Jeff Grimes would be that dude
because that would be something I think Kirk Ferentz could wrap his head around, and I think then they have the linemen to do it. They have the linemen to do it, for sure. But if you want to, kind of roll against Oregon and all that, maybe call the guy who used to be the OC there. I'm just saying, Scott Frost.
Got your options.
I would call Scott Frost, and he's got a bunch of money coming his way. He doesn't really have to do anything.
Yeah.
But I would think about that. Who else I would call if I were looking for an offensive coordinator and looking to change things up? Florida could call Scott Frost.
A&M.
A&M could call Scott Frost.
That ain't gonna happen. We know how that goes.
No, I mean, if a new coach would maybe do that.
Yeah.
But I would do that. All right, and number 1, Jed Fish at Arizona.
Impressive.
Goodness, what he's done. And he's the one I think might wind up somewhere else because he was at Michigan before, and then he got this job. So, I think Jed Fish might wind up somewhere else, but I do think, again, this is his program. They're about to move in the Big 12. There's no reason for him to leave right now unless a big job opens. And I don't know what big jobs are going to open.
I mean, nothing right now. There's nothing.
Who in the SEC is going to be open next year? For sure.
Mississippi State, maybe Mississippi. But that's not a big job. That's no different than Arizona.
No, and you have a better shot at winning the Big 12 with Noah Fifita coming in next year than you do of going to the SEC and winning with Mississippi State, right?
Yeah.
A&M might be open, but I promise you they're not calling Jed Fish. They're not that savvy.
No, not at all.
But yeah.
Yeah, what he's been able to do there has been super impressive. I think also once they get into the Big 12 and you start being able to sell kids from Texas, hey, if you come out here, change the scenery, you'll be a great fit. We'll play multiple games in your state. You can go back home. Your family will be able to watch you. Yeah, I think he's got plenty of opportunities there. But just what he's been able to do this year alone has been unreal. To talk about a basketball school that you're starting to make football relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jed Fish, number 1 on the list. Thanks to everybody who was part of the show today. Thanks to David Smoke for the interview with Nikki Collin and for his Tony Caridi and Brian Estridge interviews. Thanks to them for being on the show. Thanks to Josh Neighbors. Thanks to Sam Bradshaw. Thanks to Garrett Ross. Thanks to Grayson Greenhafer. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Emery Winter. 365 Sports Tonight. 10:30 on the CW. Tomorrow, 11:30 to 1, the pregame show. We will be on, so tune in for that. This is 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business